Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Speedcars Down Under. Tonight we're joined by Paul Charlesworth. Welcome, Paul, to the show.
Hello, Jamie. How you doing, mate? Good to see
Oh,
you.
cold, mate. Cold down here in Tassie, but we get by.
I
And
know
our
you've got
special
it.
guest tonight is Speedcar wingless sprint sensation from Adelaide, Jack McCarthy. Welcome, Jack, to the show.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.
Bit warmer
Thanks,
where
Jack.
you
How are you,
are.
mate?
Bit warmer where you are than where I am. That's for sure, Jack.
No, mate, it's freezing here.
Oh,
It's
you're
no,
cold in Adelaide too, mate.
no, it's no good in, mate. Trust me.
Oh, right. What part of Adelaide are you in at the moment?
We live in the northern suburbs, mate. So we live in Anglevale, so it's closer to sort of the Barossa Vineyards type setup than it is to the CBD. So it's quite cold out here, mate. We're a little bit out from the CBD, so it definitely gets cold.
But do you love wine? You're out in the Barossa
Oh,
Valley.
I hate it. I hate it. Like,
I don't blame you, mate. I don't go much on it either.
No, we have a vast variety of vineyards and everything out here. Adelaide's pretty well known for its vineyards and its cellar doors, and I hate it, so it's a waste.
Totally agree. Totally agree. So, Jack, how did we get into Speedway originally?
So I guess like a lot of people, Dad and my uncle were pretty heavily involved in it. So as a kid, we used to obviously go to Speedway every weekend, and Dad used to race, and he was pretty good at what he did, and yeah, I mean, like, as a kid, don't you? You run around with all the other kids and pretend like you're a race car driver. And then when I got a bit older, we did a lot of motocross stuff when I was younger. I was probably not a late bloomer to Speedway, but I probably didn't start Speedway as early as what other kids did. We were pretty passionate in motocross, and I had a pretty big crash when I was about 15, I think, and sort of broke a few bones and sort of had a bit of a rethink about what we were going to do. And then yeah, we sort of did a bit of speedway stuff, and we were riding it, and sort of just progressed from there. Like anything, man, you get into it, and if you're relatively good in it, I think the bug sort of catches you quick. And then you win a few races, and then that hunger to win some more comes about, and then just 20 years later, or 15 years later, or however long I've been doing it, we're still here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
nice.
And your dad was very big in the soup stand industry back in the day. Did that put any extra pressure on you to go towards soup sedans, or you just naturally went the open wheel sort of divisions?
I think naturally everyone probably thought that was the direction we were going to go, but I don't necessarily think that Dad was convinced that that was the right way. I guess when he was racing, that class seemed to be so predominant and probably bigger than almost an open wheel category in those sort of late '80s, early '90s. But then when I was sort of graduating out of the junior ranks, it was sort of mid 2000s, like 2007, 2008 type of deal. Super sedans, especially in Adelaide, were not as predominant as what open wheel stuff was. And I think Dad was looking more longevity
Yeah.
rather than not. And at that stage, guys like Dave Gartner and those guys that were really the top of that class, they were sort of spending cubic dollars on being really good in super sedans, and Dad just sort of didn't really see the benefit in it. I don't think so. Back in the days where he was very very good in his own built stuff, those days had sort of come and gone, and it was very much a buy off the shelf and be good.
Yeah.
So he didn't. I don't really think his heart was in super sedan from that era forward.
Yeah.
So we decided to do a bit of open wheel stuff, um, uh, and then yeah, we were sort of pretty good in it early, and then did a bit of working in America and trying to work out how these things run and get the best out of it, and then yeah, we sort of just stayed with that direction. I mean, even now, I still think super sedans are probably one of the best classes, but you've got to have a lot of them and a lot of good ones to do it. And in Adelaide, it just East Coast is a different story, but We live here, mate, so I just don't think it was. I think he knew it, even though probably deep down he wanted to do it. I think he probably knew that it just wasn't really worth it.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So South Australia's always had like a good speed car division, hasn't it? You know, they've had some top drivers, Bill March, you know, Marine and all that. So yeah, they've had some incredible open wheel drivers, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think the speed car thing has always been like it's the longest running class, that anyone
Yeah,
can sort of track history back, and there's so many good guys that have come out of South Australia that run speed cars, have run it, have won titles in it, and have been really successful. But I just think that from a speed car point of view, it's probably lacked a little bit the last few years, and Allison and Harry are probably been the forefront to push it and to get it back to a class that we can sort of rock up with 20 cars per night for a club
yeah,
show. And it's
yeah,
a credit to them to get the class back to where it is. Same thing again, like East Coast, even like Perth. Perth has always been very dominant in classes because they can obviously fend for themselves.
Yep.
yeah,
And East Coast stuff the same, like for us in Adelaide to venture to Toowoomba and Sydney and those type of places are, 15, 16, 20 plus hour drives. Whereas if you're based in Sydney, you can go north and you can go south.
yeah,
So
yeah,
those numbers will always dictate that. So I think speed cars, especially in this state at the moment, given the Adelaide 500 and those other type of things now that give a little bit of exposure to wing cars and that kind of stuff that brings different sort of levels of sponsorship and partnerships in. I
correct.
think it's thrive now, and that's a credit to Alison and Harry and what they've done in the background for the last decade. That's probably gone a little bit unnoticed, I think.
Yes, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, look, they're all great guys, you know, Peter Murphy, Allison, you know, and Harry, and you know, they're all very passionate about that team, and both of you guys, you know, you and Caleb, and you can see that. And yeah, and you know, just like you say, what they do on the outside for Speedcars Australia, yeah, I think it's incredible, you know, and we need people like that in the industry.
Yeah, I think the amount of time and effort that Alison and Harry put into Speedcars Australia, and I think that far exceeds what they do from a team level.
Yeah,
Like they give Caleb and I equipment to go and win races on a national level, and we've proven that this last year with the dominance that we had across Pro Speed Week. But it's much bigger than that for those guys.
yeah,
That they look at Speed Cars South Australia as one. I mean, Speed Cars Australia as well, but Speed Cars in SA that they look at, that's their deal.
yeah,
And they've got it back to a point now where it's gaining momentum, and we're getting a lot of car counts, and we've got essentially two of their own cars that run it at the front
yeah.
on the national level.
Yeah, good
Um,
cars too.
yeah, absolutely, and it's a credit to them for seeing it out. They could have quite easily just let it die and sort of and do nothing about it, but they pushed and they pushed and they pushed, and it was probably those first few years where it was the hardest, and now it's starting to gain traction, and everyone's sort of getting back on the speed car ranks and going, oh, the PSW is really good, and the national title is really good, and the Australasian race is really good, but in the end of the day, it's their work and their work ethic that they've done for the last 6 or 7 years that have put it in motion. And it is what it is. Caleb and I are both very fortunate to have Harry and Allison and Murph and Donna as car owners.
Yeah,
We just get to rock up and drive, mate, and they do all the hard work.
yeah,
Excellent. Excellent.
yeah.
So you and Caleb, is there much rivalry there? I'll get that right. Is there much rivalry there between the two of you?
I don't think so. No, Caleb and I are two very different people in and outside of the race car.
Yep.
Yeah,
Caleb's very like reserved, doesn't really say a lot, and sort of wants to do the job. Whereas Harry and I probably spend the entire night shit canning each other
Yep.
left
yeah,
to right, and sort of, I like to I like to bring a little bit of light to a situation, especially if it's a shit night. Like if you haven't had a very good night, or there's always the next day to look forward to, and Caleb's very he's very driven with what he wants to achieve in the race car, and he's obviously a very good race car driver. We've seen that time and time again. But in the car, it's the same thing, like he will have one thing that works for him. I'll have another thing that works for me.
Yep.
And we're very different. So I don't necessarily think that there's a rivalry there. I think there's a hunger to succeed for the team. The team is bigger than us,
Yeah,
and it always has been. And we'd sort of always come to the conclusion that if there's a way that we can bring the best out of the team, we will. And yeah, I mean, luckily so far there's been no issues of any sort of crashing into each other or anything like that. But it's just more so we're both competitive and we both want to win the race. But I think we're also both smart enough to know the team's bigger than we are.
Yeah, cool. So
and you've both proven that out on the track. In a lot of footage that I've seen, that you're both running wheel to wheel. So yeah, it's a credit to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think on the same token, you want to race people with respect as well. You don't want to rock up to a race meeting the next week and someone's going to try and hang you off the fence for something you did the week before. So, whether it's Caleb or somebody else, especially in the speed car community, I find it's a lot more sort of close knit. The
Yeah,
wingless stuff that we do is probably a little bit more blasé and a little bit more hit and miss than the speed car. The speed car community look like they try and rally together a little bit more to build the class up.
yeah,
So you never want to go out there and same thing. You're doing a lot of racing together. You're going really fast in them cars. They're very small. There's a very high chance that you're going to get seriously hurt in them.
yeah,
And I think that a lot of those guys that we race against at the front of the field are intelligent enough to know that if you want to go in there and you want to try and wipe half the field out, you're probably going to injure someone.
yep.
So yeah, I mean, a lot of those guys, they race you hard. Like, Caleb and I, even still now, there's been a couple of times where we've raced each other extremely hard, but you've got to have that level of, you can seriously injure someone here, if you want to drive like a dickhead. So, Caleb or not, I try and utilize that. If I've got a car to win, I know that I've got a car to win. And if you don't, then unfortunately it is what it is.
yeah.
Now
No, totally agree.
you went to America at a very young age. Is that right, Jack?
I think the first time I went to America to work, I was 19.
Yep.
Yeah, so I've been there probably 6 or 7 times
Yep. Yep.
across the last sort of 10 or 12 years. I haven't been back since COVID. But like I felt that I needed to go and do a bit of racing over there to work out how these cars work. I mean, predominantly most of my background is wing racing.
Yep.
It was never midget stuff. It was all wing stuff. But that was obviously the goal, to go and do some wing racing and to come back to Australia and do some wing stuff. So I went and sort of learned my craft there and did a fair few years learning on those cars and how to make them go fast. And I mean, you don't really take a lot from that to the speed car. It's very different. But I think once you have a broad understanding of how the car reacts and works, you can utilize it across both.
And how do you go with changing from the different divisions, mate, from a sprint car to a wingless to a speed car? I presume they're obviously completely different to drive to one another.
Yeah, they are. They have their different characteristics. I don't really think. I think initially when I first used to jump from one to the other, I used to sort of have to give myself a minute or so to remember what I was doing. But I think after a while, you sort of get to that point where you know pretty quickly what's going to happen and how it's going to react, and you just have a general feel for how a car works. And I've been fortunate enough to drive a lot of different race cars in my life, and on the same night too. I've done the wingless car and the speed car on the same night.
Yeah.
So you sort of know how it works. I mean, I guess it becomes second nature a little bit.
Yep. Yep. Cool.
Yeah.
So, what else have we got here? What's it like working with Alison and the rest of the Alison put a bit of a status up yesterday saying we was in for a bit of a time at this interview. So does that mean you're the bit of the larrikin of the crew, or?
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah, I think between myself and Dave Palmer. So Dave's our ring-in crew chief from Queensland. He will always come down when we've got big stuff on, just to sort of lighten the load for Murph, because it's obviously such a big deal to crew chief two cars and try and get two drivers in the same mindset. So we try and separate a little bit so that everyone can get a bit of a breather. And between once Dave and I start working together, then typically we target Harry pretty good. Um, I love Harry, but he's an idiot. Um, so
He's passionate.
yeah, I nothing gets me more excited than just ripping into him. So I mean, he gives it back twice as hard, but there's a couple of inside jokes between us, and it just sort of it might you can't be serious all the time. Like I'm
Yeah, I
very
totally agree.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like I'm a very competitive person. I'll be the first person to crack the shits or be so dialed in that, when you want to win a race. But the thing is you got so many people around you, right? So our team consists and comprises predominantly on, 8 or 9 people every night. So, all those 8 or 9 people, they're all got a job to do. They all want to win and they all want to succeed. But at some point in time, if you're having a bad night or someone crashes or the car's not where you want it to be, or, you're not where you want to be, then, you got to have that icebreaker somewhere.
yeah,
And that icebreaker is me. So.
yeah, yeah. I know that for sure.
Have you ever
Yeah.
jumped in the wrong car, Jack? Because the cars in here are identical. I couldn't pick them apart at the Australian title. So have you ever jumped in the
Yeah.
wrong car by mistake?
No, they're absolutely identical now. So since we changed my engine package to a GRD, the same as Caleb's, they are exactly the same. But no, I've never sat in the wrong. I don't know who it was. It was maybe Dave or Matt Greenwood. One of them at one of the nights picked up the wrong car. So as in, like, they came to pick me up from the track
Yeah.
when they should have got Caleb, and they left Caleb out on the infield. So yeah, they've made the mistake before, but no, we've never gotten in the wrong car.
Yeah.
So who wears the boots in the whole team? Would it be Allison?
Absolutely.
Oh, for sure. I was going to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, as I don't think it's been. I only think I've ever been in trouble once. Um, and I don't even know if it was really in trouble, but when the dynamic inside the team changes, you're in the shit.
Yeah.
Um, and it's all Allison. Harry is absolutely nothing. Um, he's 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 an absolute pissant, and
This sounds
Allison,
like a setup to Harry in
It
my eyes.
does sound like that, doesn't it?
yeah,
No.
Allison is absolutely everything that holds that. I mean, between Allison and Donna, Murph busts his ass and does continually every time we hit the track. But
Yeah.
Allison and Donna are that team. Without Allison and Dee, we none of us would be racing. That's for sure.
Yeah. And just a little quick thing about Peter Murphy. I mean, if whoever doesn't know, like Peter Murphy is such an incredible guy, like with what he's done too with sprint cars. And, it was good to see him at the Aussie title at the Calcutta. I only sort of got to say a brief hello, but I mean, like as a kid growing up too, like he was another guy that I looked at and thought, what an inspiration to Speedway, especially Australia. And to have him on your team, I think that's just awesome.
Yeah, Murph's actually Murph's the glue that holds it together. I don't think
Yeah.
we've all got like some nights I don't know how Murph does it. Purely based on I'll be telling him one thing that I want, and then KC will be telling him one thing that he wants. But because we're so different in the way that we drive a race car, it's
Yeah.
just it's just two different things, and he just bounces from one to another, and he's running around, and he's got 15 different shocks in his hand, and he's got shit going everywhere, and we try to help him to do one thing or another, and you
Yeah.
know he's so invested in that team to succeed that I think he just works and works and works, and then that the Pro Speed Week this year, everybody got sick. I don't know what
Yeah.
it was. Dave Palmer brought some sort of Queensland flu um, down, and Dave was supposed to come down and be my crew chief for those 4 nights, and he literally got the first night in at Portland, and he was sick every night after that. And then Allison was sick the last night to the point where they couldn't even get out of bed. And I remember seeing Murph that last night at Warrnambool when Caleb won. And I think we ran fourth or fifth or whatever, but ended up winning the
Yeah.
speed week. Murph was so sick that you could see his eyes hanging out of his head, and he was trying to get in the truck to get out of the pit because he was so sick. It was probably one of the most successful nights we've ever had as a race team.
Yeah.
All he wanted to do was just to get out of there and go to bed because he was the only one out of the 6 or 7 of us that actually busted ass trying to get the cars on the racetrack, and he was sick as a dog. So it's
Yeah.
the guy just busts his absolute ass for us, and yeah, he's worth his weight in gold, that's for sure.
For sure. And just his underpinning knowledge would be just awesome to have. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
No, it's
Coming,
as the whole team, like I said, being someone who's been around you guys a couple of times, and I've seen the two different dynamics from talking to Caleb. And he's such a great guy too. Like when you get him to open up a little bit and actually have a chat with you when he feels comfortable, like you wouldn't get a better kid. But you sort of go and talk to him and then come over and talk to you. It's like,
yeah,
the contrast is so different. So I can imagine what it'd be like trying to set up the
yeah.
two different cars and everything else. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's two completely different people, right? It's two guys that want the best out of the car and they want to succeed. But the problem is both Casey and I want different things in the car. We drive differently. We want to do things differently. So for him, it's not like you set one car up and then you mirror one off the other. It
other,
doesn't.
yeah.
And we're different weights too. Like KC's a little bit heavier than I am, so then the bars in my car are a bit different to KC's, and it's like crew chiefing two completely separate cars.
Yeah,
Just because
yeah,
they look the same, and everything visually looks the same, they're certainly
yeah.
not the same.
Oh, cat over in the background there, mate's having a bit of a walk around on the.
That's it.
He's out there having a
Thirsty.
poor little man.
Yeah, yeah, that's it.
So
Thirsty.
pretty cool. So they tell me that it took you a bit to get in with Allison and the team there to start with, mate. Like you had a few little hints that you wanted to drive for them, but it took a while to get you in there.
I think it took a while for me. I think I had Harry. I think I had Harry on board. It took me a little while to get Al on board. Um, I don't. She'll probably correct me. I don't know who was the deciding factor in it.
Right.
But I ran American Racer tires on my wingless for years and years and years, and I would obviously always go and buy the tires from Al and Harry because they were the American Racer down here. So every time I used to go there, we used to talk some shit, and I would zing Harry like I still do every single day. And and at that stage, I think they had a couple of people in and out of the six car. I think Brett Olin drove it for a bit, and Andy Pierce
Yep.
drove it. There was sort of no one really, really solid in it. And then they got KC to come over and drive it. But at that stage, I think KC was a bit sporadic. Like he was obviously still living in New Zealand, so he would come and do bits and pieces. So then, yeah, I think I don't know what maybe it was the 21 season in the wingless. We just had one of those years where everything just sort of panned out okay, and I think we'd won like 13 or 14 A features. Um,
Yeah,
Basically, just became almost unbeatable.
Yep.
And it was a lot of it was being really good, and a lot of it was luck. There was a few races there where I was running second or third, and guys dropped out in front of me. We didn't have a car to win, but yeah, it just sort of happened. It was just one of those really good years, and And I sort of I went and got some tyres, I think, at one stage, and every week that I won a race, I would ring Alison and tell her that I won another one and another one and another one. And just asked her when I was gonna. I just asked her when I was gonna get the drive in the six car. Like because at that stage I think they were somewhat committed to getting Casey a new car
Yeah.
and a new engine package and everything. So then the Spike S-Slinger sort of sat there not doing anything. And yeah, I ripped into him and ripped into him and ripped into him and basically did everything but give him money to put me in the car. And then yeah, at one stage, they had sort of said to me that we'll go do a couple of laps at Murray Bridge in the Spike, and we'll sort of see how you do. Seeing as you've done nothing but talk shit for the last 8 months, we'll see. We'll see if you're any good because Alison always had this theory of I was just a wingless driver. She used to, yeah, she used to always say it to me. She was like, "Well, you're just a wingless driver. You're a wingless driver." So then I used to say, "Well, put me in the car. Like give me a run in the car, and we'll sort of see." So then they did, and we went to Murray Bridge, and I had Daryl Nucky there, and a couple of other guys that were there that were, I think, just sort of micromanaging what we were doing. And I don't know if we had an exact time, per lap that I sort of needed to be around. But I'd never driven a midget. I'd never even sat in one. And we sort of strapped in to go do a couple of hot laps. And I reckon I did maybe 8 or 9 hot laps just by myself with no one else there for the very first time. And I sort of rolled it back in and knocked it out of gear. And I'd seen Harry. I got out of the car and I looked at Harry, and he looked at, and it felt okay, right? Like the track was a bit dusty and a bit sort of blown away, but the car, it felt good. Like I could feel that the car was straight, and we throttled it good. And I got out of the car and I looked at Harry, and Harry looked at me and smiled, and then looked the other way. And then I looked at Alison, and Alison was like, sort of looked at me, and then no one said nothing. And I was like, whatever. So we did a couple more runs, I think. And then, yeah, we loaded up and went back home. And then I drove back to Harry's with my crew chief in the car, and I drove back with Harry. And then, yeah, we literally, Harry's house is like 40 minutes from the track. So they obviously had a 40-minute debrief. And then, yeah, we just got back to Harry's and got out of the car, and Harry said, well, you talk shit, but you can obviously drive a car too. So if you want the drive, you can have it. And then, we sort of worked out a deal together, and then we had the idea of that we were just going to go and do some local stuff around Murray Bridge and bits and pieces like that for the first year. And Caleb was going to go and do all the bigger stuff because he obviously had the new car. And then we rolled out and won the Blackjack Championship and ran 6th or 7th or something in the national title at Sydney the very first year in that car, and got the drive ever since.
Yeah, no, nice.
Are we going to go back to wingless as well, Jack, or are we just going to stick with the speed car?
So this year there's a bit of a change. We're going to do some wing stuff again this year, which will be my own car, and then we'll continue with a full season in the midget with Hardwire, and then I'll probably try and slip my way into some sort of wingless ride for the big stuff. Only for the big stuff though. So I'll do the national title in Perth and go over and see my mate Buddha and hang out with him for a while, and then we will probably do the state title here and basically just fill the gaps with some wingless stuff. I feel a bit robbed in that class. I feel like I should have won a lot more stuff, especially titles, and I have. I think I've led 5 of them and haven't won one yet. So,
really?
And
Oh, that sucks.
Where do you think the wingless are going to go, Jack? Because like we're racing 30 plus year old motors in them now. They're getting getting hard to get hold of.
Yeah, it seems to be the talk of the town at the moment. What they're going to do, in my personal opinion, I think they're going to keep it.
Yeah, right.
I don't think that there's been enough push or enough positive push to find something better. And the problem is too, right? Like they're locked in till 2029 or 2030 for the current engine. You got to remember that if you're going to allow guys to buy and build new engines, you can't allow these guys to build new engines in 2028 and then tell them in 2030 that they can throw it in the bin, and we've got to start another one. And in my opinion, it doesn't really seem like they're proactive in finding another solution. They're probably more proactive in longevity with what we've got. That's the feeling that I'm getting. Like I build engines for a living, and I've built a lot of wingless engines for a lot of guys across the country, and the amount of money and the amount of time a lot of guys are spending, I just can't see them just turning the light switch off.
Yeah.
So I think inevitably that it'll just continue as it is. That they may make some modifications to bits and pieces as the time goes, but I think that the actual core engine itself will stay.
Yeah.
I'd love.
Are you running the Pro Series? Sorry, Jane.
I'd love to see an LS in them. I really think that'd make the division just that little bit better than what it is now.
Yeah, I did have this conversation a couple of times over the past probably like 12 or 18 months about diversity in that LS engine. As in, if you allowed the LS engine in a non-wing car and a wing car and a late model and a super sedan or whatever else they use them in across the country, even though some little bits and pieces will change, like alternators, cooling systems, dry sump, stuff like that, you'll probably find that the versatility of being able to sell the secondhand market is massive then, because you're actually incorporating four classes. Not only that, you'll find that a lot of those guys will run a non-wing and a wing. So like if race, like say for instance, if you had a race at Bordertown in South Australia in a wing car on Friday night, and then you race Murray Bridge in a non-wing car on Saturday night, that same person can race those two. The only disadvantage that I can see at the moment with doing that would be, I think it would kill Speedcars in Australia.
Yeah, right. Yep.
Just purely based on, I know what our team spends on engines and engine programs and stuff like that. If you gave a non-wing car a new lease on life with putting an LS engine in it with 600 horsepower or 580 horsepower, I think you'll find that a lot of those top-level midget guys will struggle to fill the void of going to race for big money. And I think that that's the only downfall that I can see at the moment is I think a lot of those more budget class speed car guys would probably opt for that option, which would then kill your car count. You'd still have your Cadens and your Nick Parkers and those type of guys that are very predominant in our class, but then you're racing 8 guys every night instead of 30.
We don't want that. We definitely don't want speed cars dying. No way. Definitely not. Any heroes growing up, Jack? Like any people you idolised?
I think everyone idolises their dad, don't they? Especially if they're any good. I mean, my dad was really good at what he did, and a lot of guys still to this day will come and tell me about stories of him and how good he was. And I think because he had something different, like he had a different car that didn't fit the program. Guys all had big V8 super sedans with big fat bodies on them, and then dad rolled out with a supercharged rotary that used to catch on fire all the time. And but like when it ran, there was nothing in the country that was any faster than it, and he could drive a race car too. So the thing is I think you always want to be like your dad. When you're growing up, you spend all your time with them, right? Like, you go away racing and then, your life revolves around what they're doing because you're just a kid. And then when they're good too, like, when you used to go places, you used to get that like puff in your chest about, my dad's better than your dad.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, it was, like it was cool. It was cool then. And, because he was such a good guy, I guess, everyone was like, oh, your dad's the best. He was wicked. It was just sort of Yeah,
Well,
you just
the
sort
old
of
apple wouldn't have fallen far from the tree, I don't think.
yeah, you just sort of you get to that point where your life revolves around them of what they're doing and the people that they know
Yeah,
and then yeah, you grow up and it's everyone's the same person, they're just a bit older.
yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. So tell me, I've got one question to ask you. I've heard on the grapevine that you might have a good head for radio. What's your opinion on that?
That was the Dave Palmer thing, I reckon, or a Brendan Palmer thing. It's a Palmer brother thing. I don't know if either of you have met the Palmer brothers, but it's pretty rich coming from them because I've seen the pair of them looking pretty worse for wear. That's for
Have
sure.
you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Brendan more so.
Oh, that's
So
legendary.
what's first up for the season for you, Blakes, Jack? Like, have we got any plans as yet, or are we still up in the air? What's going
The
on?
midget stuff for me is basically whenever Harry rings me,
Yep.
or whenever our sort of gives me a rundown of what we're doing. The wingless stuff for me, like I said, will probably just be the biggest sort of stuff. So we'll probably find a couple of race meetings in there to do a couple of shakedowns. If I can find something that's suitable of winning.
Yeah,
If I can't, then we won't do that. And then the wing stuff, I think, starts late October.
Yep.
yeah. So you're going to do the
So
Pro Series this year?
yeah, so we'll build an LS,
Yeah,
and then yeah, I think that's going to gain a fair bit of traction down here, and hopefully bring in the next couple of years bring us to like a 20-25 car a night type deal.
yeah,
Just given the amount of money that a lot of those top guys, including myself, was spending on wingless racing for basically zero return.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
the wide open series that we had this year was good. Getting the class and the awareness, I guess, of how
yeah,
big the class is out there.
yeah,
Because the class deserves it. There's so many cars and there's so many really good cars and really good drivers. The amount of money that a lot of those top level, those top 20 cars are spending to be at the front of the field the cars are as good as sprint cars.
yeah.
Um,
Oh, for sure, yeah,
so like it for me, the wide open thing was really good, and it sort of put a little bit on the map. But on the same token, if you put shit in, you get shit out.
yeah,
And I find with wingless stuff at the moment, everyone still likes to reiterate to me that it's a budget class. Well, if everyone's got the same mindset that it's budget, then no one's going to try and excel. And then for
yeah,
me, spending that kind of money to go racing and race for absolutely nothing is just sort of got to this end for me. So
yeah,
we built a wing car to do a bit more wing stuff, and I had a couple of financial partners that wanted to go wing racing this year,
yeah,
and they wanted to be a part of it. So it was a good time for me.
I
yeah.
don't think.
So with Speedcars, are you going to do the Pro Series though this season?
I believe so. Yeah,
Oh, that'd be good. That'd be
I
good. And
think
then obviously, yeah, they've got the
yeah.
Aussie title at Simpson, so you obviously be doing that one too.
Yeah, so I think I haven't spoken to Harry or Al about what the schedule looks like, but I'm assuming that given that we won the PSW last year, I'd say that we'll do that again,
Yeah,
and all of the other bits and pieces. I think maybe like a 18 or 20 night schedule, depending on what everyone's doing and how everyone's doing.
yeah, yeah.
But
That'd be good. That'd be good.
yeah.
You got the biggest achievement you've done in Speedway yet, Jack, or we still after that big
Um,
or
I think winning the speed week last year was probably the best thing I've done, and I don't think it was from an individual thing. I think it was more from a team thing, because we had a lot of issues with that S Slinger engine at the start of last year. We blew it up, and then it dropped the valve, and then we drove all the way to Canberra and did 3 hot laps, and it dropped the valve. And then came all the way home, and I think everyone was pretty worn out. Like Caleb's stuff was obviously really good, and it always ran, and everything was perfect. But my stuff was always a pain in the ass. And like I could see every time something went wrong, Harry and Murph and everyone was just sort of really down in the dumps that both cars weren't running. And then, given that, all of the times that Esslinger ran were really competitive. And we did a really good job for an engine package that was worth, a quarter of what all the good ones were. So every time it went wrong, I could see the disappointment in everyone. And then between the start of the year last year and leading up to Pro Speed Week, Harry and Al and Donna and Murph and they had all come together and decided that we were going to purchase another GRD for me. So, that takes a financial strain on everyone. It takes a financial strain on the team. And then the very first time I turned a lap in that GRD was Portland.
Yeah.
So, going from one engine package to a completely different engine package and a completely different throttle setup and a completely different gear in the car and, to going from never turning a lap in it to winning the speed week with, a lot of the best guys in the country. And then Caleb, theoretically, apart from crashing twice, basically did carbon copied exactly what I did. And for us to run 1-2 at Mount Gambier that night, I think for me to see the excitement and almost the pressure taken off of those guys and girls that run that team was probably the best thing that I've done. Just to see Harry and Murph so ecstatic about, I guess, what they've invested their money and time into.
Yeah. For sure.
That was probably the best thing for me is to run across that line and win. Like, to win that race at Mount Gambier for me was very high in the achievements that I've done as an individual. But I think it was a lot more than just that win for me. It was a team thing.
It was a good race too.
Yeah, and to dominate that race and basically spank everyone in that field, the pair of us did. That was, and then to wrap up Caleb won the last night, which was really good, and then we won the thing. So we came home with an entire trailer full of Corflute podium races and trophies, and then I think that probably went a lot better than anyone thought it was going to, and then just it gives them a little bit of perspective on the money and the time and the commitment they put in that we're good enough to win.
Any talk in going to the Adelaide 500? Soon as Speedcars have been put on the program there now.
Well, I mean, ideally that would be great. It's 35 minutes from home.
Yep.
We don't have a racetrack in Adelaide anymore after Speedway City shut down. So, I mean, it just depends on. I think there's an expressions of interest and
I think it's invitation only.
Yeah, selective committee. So, mate, at the end of the day, I wait for the phone to ring. Al or Harry will call me and tell me what we're doing, and I just go there.
You just do
it'd be a good opportunity.
I just do what I'm told. Yeah.
See, Alison, he can do as he's told.
Yeah. Only to Al, though. Only to Al.
Only to Al. Yeah, right. Cool. Well, we might leave it there, fellas. Thanks for joining us tonight, Jack. Absolute blast having you on the show. We wish you the best luck in the future. We hope, we hope to see both them cars up on that top podium a few more times next season, and hope the year goes well for you.
Yeah, hopefully, mate. Yeah, it's there's no reason why we can't be. We proved it last year, so yeah, hopefully a good year, and we'll just keep pushing through like normal.
Cheers, mate.
Good. I'll see you down at the Pro Series this year, anyway.
Yeah, perfect, mate. I'd say we'll be there.
Yeah, hopefully
have a beer for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cheers, everyone. Thanks everyone, and thanks for joining us tonight. And don't forget to like the page and catch up with us next week, where we've got Tim Devine on the show, I think.
Tim Devine, next week. Yeah, I'll catch up with Tim this week, and we'll have Tim Devine on next week.
All right then, no worries. Thanks everyone, and we'll see you next episode. Cheers, everyone. Good night.